For this week, an edition that is dedicated to discussing burning issues in Cameroon. We're going to be starting with the Martinez Zogo saga. He was assassinated and the body discovered in the outskirts of Yaoundé, and the Secretary General, Minister of State Secretary General at the presidency came out on February the 2nd with a communique actually situating Cameroonians on where the case is, highlighting the fact that some persons have been taken and that more persons implicated with the case were going to be arrested. And what is making news today is the fact that the boss of the Anedette group, Jean-Pierre Nolinga, was taken in today alongside some close collaborators. We're going to be looking at what is happening around this case, and after which we're going to be answering the question as to whether it is time for an Anglophone president and what it would take to get an Anglophone to lead Cameroon, as we also are going to be looking at what the opposition parties need to do to mobilize in order to seize power in Cameroon from the ruling CPDM that has been in power for decades now. We are discussing these three topics, if time permits, with panelists who are seated in the house already. Fah Elvis Tayong is the Under Secretary for Communication for the Cameroon Renaissance Movement. Good evening, Fah Elvis. They call you the Kangaroo Man. Welcome.
Thanks very much. It's my pleasure marking present here, though the kangaroo system is taking a kangaroo turn and, of course, falling back on those that have been manning the kangaroo system. But then, it's a special greetings to the people of Gunoko village, as usual, and to the Royal Majesty Dr. Fomuki Waters, and a host of others from the Mbingwe Central Subdivision, and my second home, the people of Baba 1, as well as those from Bafanji, who are equally watching us right away.
We also in the company of Boris Atamfu Richard, who is a member of Cameroon Bar and a very, very active member of Cameroon Civil Society, involved in many cases touching on our national life. Good evening, Boris, and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening to the co-panelists. Good evening to all the Cameroonians who are watching. I'm also a member of the Nigerian Bar Association, so okay. Those are some of my caskets. So I'm very happy to be here today to be able to dissect and clarify the Cameroonians who are watching about the burning events in Cameroon. It's been very hot. I know there are a lot of legal issues that they may want to hear, so it's my pleasure to be here so as to enlighten your audience.
We're also in the company of the column Tata Mbinglo Kwawi, who is the president of the Cameroon Movement for Change, hoping to be the next president of Cameroon. Good evening, welcome.
Much obliged. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, fellow panelists. Good evening, fellow Cameroonians. Once again, it is a great pleasure to be here today to look into issues that are at stake and issues affecting our nation. I do believe that such a forum always gives room for ideas we share and to look for a way forward for our beloved country.
We also are expecting Fabrice Lena, Secretary General for the Popular Action Parties, PAP. I don't know whether he's on standby. Good evening, Fabrice. Okay, we're told he's not yet connected. But while we get to him, we are moving over to Yaoundé to get Bo Elvis situate us on what is happening in Yaoundé today. Bo, what did you make of the happenings in Yaoundé today?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to Yaoundé. We are somewhere around the State Secretariat of Defense, just a few meters away from the legion that is really officials alleged suspects in the murder of popular Yaoundé journalist Jean-Pierre Nolinga. It's a tense atmosphere here around the State Secretariat of Defense, with gendarmes positioned in key positions. Other gendarmes have been placed in strategic areas around businesses owned by Jean-Pierre Nolinga. In the early hours of today, Jean-Pierre Nolinga was arrested at his home as part of investigations into the murder of popular journalist Martinez Zogo. The information has been confirmed here at the State Secretariat of Defense and equally confirmed by Anecdote Group, where he's the founding president, and the group owns, among others, television channel Vision Card, Tele Sud, and a newspaper. the newspaper has stated that the businessman was taken to the State Secretariat of Defense. According to a release signed by the head of the Communications Department of Anecdote Group, the release says, this is a procedure that is taking its course, and we know that investigators are only doing their job. That's according to Ines Nolinga, the head of the Communication Division of the Anecdote Group. Since Martinez Zogo's body was found 5 days after his January 17 abduction, he was abducted near Gendarmerie Station. Reporters Without Borders have been putting pressure. His name, the name of Jean-Pierre Mugubelinga has been constantly mentioned in public opinion, and in fact, during the program, embouteillage, this traffic jam of January 17, which is alleged to have, in one way or the other, contributed to the elimination of Martinez Zogo. The popular journalist mentioned the names of personalities, including Jean-Pierre Mugubelinga. According to Reporters Without Borders, it is alleged that the interrogation of senior intelligence officials that placed, it is true, the interrogation of senior intelligence officials that placed the boss of Anecdote Group on the spotlight alongside the newly appointed general manager of the group, Bruno Ija. In Cameroon, public opinion expects strong action from the government on this case that has shocked many both in and out of the country.
We are going to stay with you out there, Bo Elvis, to tell us a little bit more about what is commonly known in Cameroon as lines 65 and 94, which have been denounced by late Zogo.
Yeah, thank you so much, for that question. Each time the finance law is voted in November by the National Assembly, the government takes into consideration entries and expenditure for the upcoming year and allocates budgets for various ministries in the countries as well as state corporations. Apart from these budgetary lines, a budgetary allocation is prepared for emergencies. It could be disasters, it could be health-related evacuations, emergency trips, not planned, etc. That is where you get appellations like line 65. Line 65 in the Ministry of Finance is used for functional purposes. That is, the state may forget some expenditure money. When the state forgets some expenditure, money is taken from this line. You also have line 63, line 64, and line 66. At the Ministry of Economic Planning, we have line 94 that is focused on state investments, especially maybe some forgotten projects. If the state, for instance, has to give their own quota for international sponsored projects, money can be taken from that line. So it just focuses on investments. The total amount of money in these budgetary allocations could be estimated at around 2,500 billion francs CFA. And according to information we got from various experts, this money can only be removed from these budgetary lines following the authorization of the Prime Minister and head of government. So, whether investments in line 65, line 63, and line 94, as alleged by the late journalist Martinez Zogo and other media, other reports, that is what we've been we have been trying to find out. And if the Prime Minister and head of government authorize the removal of money from these various budgetary lines, that is something we are still trying to find out.
Before I let you go, let me get a government response to line 94 and 65 as denounced by Zogo.
Built on this a few months back by Honorable Jean-Michel Ninche on how the Minister of Finance takes decisions to finance some projects using line 63, line 65, and line, all of these lines, budgetary lines that are creating controversy here in Yaoundé. Wilton Mutaze, who is the Minister of Finance, said at that time that many will be surprised when audit results will be released because of a lot of fake information that has been passed across concerning expenditures in the budgetary line lodged in the Ministry of Finance. He said some of the questions were not related to him in any way because at that time he was not at the Ministry of Economic Planning. He went ahead to say that some members of parliament, even from the opposition, have benefited from such budgetary lines, and through the construction of water pumps in their constituencies. And so the expenditure does not benefit individuals, but benefit the people. Questioned at the Senate about favoritism to a now arrested media mogul, Jean-Pierre Mungo Belinga, Louis Pomotase told the Senate that his aim was to support businessmen who take courage to give jobs, and in this particular case, the businessman mentioned had proven his enthusiasm by buying over a European-based media company, adding that some media companies even receive 5 times more than the cited person, and he will not behave like other people by publishing information online. The controversies are being raised at a time when representatives of the private media in Cameroon are complaining that the government has reduced aid to the private press, which now stands at only 56 million francs CFA, with the Ministry of Communication officials linking the drop to the multiple crises affecting world economies. Kum Leonard, I leave you right now because we have to go back to the State Secretariat of Defense to observe how interrogations into the case of the murder of Martinez Zogo are unfolding. We are somewhere around there to observe the situation and to see how things are going to unfold, who is going to be the next to be arrested in these ongoing investigations ordered by the head of state. Just wait and see. At the State Secretariat of Defense, for my Media Prime, for Prime Hour flagship program, this is Fah Elvis alongside Serge Buole, thanking you. Have a wonderful time.
Thank you very much, Fah Elvis and Serge, for the great job out there in Yaoundé to update our audience on what is happening. But I will start by going back to this press release that was signed on the 2nd of February. In Yaoundé, the Minister of State Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic hereby informs the public that in pursuance of the instructions of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Paul Biya, a mixed gendarmerie police commission of inquiry has been set up to shed light on the assassination of the journalist Hassan Salomon Mbami Zogo, also known as Martinez Zogo. Investigations carried out so far have led to the arrest of several individuals highly suspected of being involved in the heinous crime. Others remain wanted. Ongoing interrogations and the ensuing judicial proceedings will help to determine the level of involvement of each suspect and establish the identities of all those connected in one way or the other with the assassination of Martinez Zogo. In this tragic circumstance, the head of state wishes to pay a special tribute to the late journalist Martinez Zogo and restate his support to the profession as a whole. Once again, he extends to the family of the deceased his heartfelt condolences and assures them of the sympathy of the entire nation. The President of the Republic reaffirms his resolve to keep up his struggle for democracy, human rights, good governance and progress, together with the government and all Cameroonians of goodwill. This was signed in Yaoundé on the 2nd of February 2023. Okay, to say that the government is meeting your expectations in this particular case?
Yes, I think first of its kind is that we will appreciate the government's effort, especially with the President of the Republic authorizing the Secretary General to carry out the move and then authorizing both the police and the gendarme to be involved in the case. Now, you realize that we keep appreciating when it is appreciable for the fact that this is first of its kind. We've seen things taking a different twist. But I think that it would have been something that could be done for any other Cameroonian, not just particular Cameroonians, because we have lost so many. We have lost Wazizi, we have lost Ateba Ewane, and a host of others. So, and we know that even Paul Chuta almost escaped narrowly because his own was that they thought he was dead. That's why they abandoned him half dead, and only realized later on. And that's why if you get in some of the investigations that are going on, you will realize that some informations were like, just do away with this one so that it should not repeat this case like the one happened to the other one that we thought we had killed him when we had not killed him, or when he was not yet killed. So at the end of it, I think the state is doing what it's supposed to do, because under normal condition, it is the duty of a state to provide total security to its citizens. And I told people several times that the state has been acting in bad faith. That's why I used to call it a kangaroo system, and I continue to call it a kangaroo system, because there are certain persons, when they are killed, investigations, that is, That's when the country tells you that they have perfect investigation methods to be put in place. We have a scenario some few years back when the commissioner was killed in Bamenda. And when the commissioner was killed in Bamenda, the governor equally spoke on the issue and they gave 72 hours to track down the perpetrators. And I tell you, within 42 hours, the perpetrators were tracked. People were surprised how it happened. But now you could imagine that we have a perfect security system, but when it comes to cases that are somehow against the state, they play quiet and people just perish as such. If not, I will not be explaining, they cannot explain to me why the other persons who just died mysteriously, murdered in cold blood. There was another young man again who was murdered, and then the girlfriend taken from Yaoundé.
The Reverend Father was killed.
And the Reverend Father was killed just within a Saturday, correct. So you look at it all and all, it means that the state has the means to track the perpetrators, but the question is, why do they stay silent for so many cases and decide to act on this case? We all as pressmen had decried the brutal murder of Martinez Zogo, and for the fact that the government is acting. Now, the next point we have is, we only hope, because acting is one thing, taking the situation to the end. We know what happened with the case of the late Font Do of Balikumbat. We understood that the presiding magistrate who were in charge of the case at the High Court there ended up, at a point in time, after slamming him his jail term, we got an overruling when they went to the appeal court. And what was the justification? That the two magistrates who were involved were all coming from two different courts, one from Donga Mantu, you know, and the other from, so you could imagine the scenario. That was the excuse. So they left the crime itself and were looking at the fact that those who stood on that case were carried out a judgment which did not even warrant them to still stand in that case. And that's why you see at the point that he was investigated at a point in time. So we think that we will be expecting that as they have started, they should move right to the end. Of course, from the communique that the Secretary General Ferdinand Ngongo said, many have been arrested. And we understand many too were arrested today. And we expect, if it means arresting a whole battalion, I think we have enough space. I can give my palo to house some of those criminals or alleged criminals, so we keep them there for justice to take its course. But then, one person should not be too powerful, Mr. Kum. If we call Cameroon a state of law, for example, one man should not take the law into his hands. Now, we are not saying that it is normal for crimes to go unpunished, but the question is, why would some people look like too powerful? Look at the case sometime we had a scenario in Boya. One man has been too powerful, barrister has been on the case there. I start asking yourself, but where do we stand with the law that even barristers take the matter, file to Yaoundé, and later they said they've been transferred the matter to Boya. But you see, it's just a jigsaw puzzle game. But the question is, the state that we know needs to explain to us why the special interest, why we're giving them a long tick, but they need to be honest to tell Cameroonians that we decide to buy this case.
Why is the Martinez Zogo's case peculiar?
Very peculiar, that is it.
Now, these investigations that are moving at very high, very fast pace, also involving very high profile personalities who are said to have been taken already. Barrister, instructions are coming from the head of state. What is the judiciary in Cameroon doing?
Yes, that is the peculiarity about this case. You see, the way the case is handled is as if we are before an administrative investigation, because when the incident happened, it was in the proper duty of the judiciary to open up investigations, but we saw them failing, maybe because there were some compromises around the way, maybe because the person today who is arrested maybe had his best friend who is the Minister of Justice, and he knew that nothing could be done, and we had to stay like for I think close to a week. Nothing was being taken as action, and with the pressure that was being mounted by the civil society and maybe other medias, I think the president had to take his responsibility as the head of state and head of the armed forces. You know that we talked about separation of powers in Cameroon, but actually there is no true separation of powers, because the president of the republic is at the same time the president of the higher judicial council. So I think he had to use his powers as head of state to really bring justice to his people, and I think that's how he instructed the Minister of State, Secretary General of the Presidency to maybe put up that commission, so that today we are witnessing what we're having. So it's just a clear indication that the justice system has failed, and it is not today that the justice system has been failing. People have been decrying how our justice system is operating. People have complained on how procedures disappeared. Magistrates have complained on how they are helpless, they don't have powers, they only wait for instructions coming from Yaoundé. In short, the whole judicial chain has been helpless. So I think what is also good today is that as these administrative investigations are ongoing, we have the hope and the presumption that it will not be transferred to the judicial, maybe to the Ministry of Justice, because if guns were used, military people were involved, the case will have to go to a military court. And when it goes to a military court, it is not the Minister of Justice who is like the overseer. It is the minister, a delegate in charge of defense at the presidency. So I think we are hopeful that at least if they really want to serve justice to a case of Martinez Zogo, we are hopeful that the investigations will be carried hitch-free, because if we were in front, for example, of a judicial investigation, I am very certain that the Minister of Justice, with all his authority, will have maybe tried to intimidate the investigators or try to intimidate the magistrates who are handling the case and maybe hiding some of the culprits. So I think though we are in the face of an administrative investigation, I think that's the best we could get. And
okay, that's the best we could get. Now, Tata Mbinglo, we are also in a situation where it's a case that also concerns high-profile personalities, but at this moment, nobody. We are working under the presumption that nobody has been declared or found guilty. But this case seemingly has the involvement of some very high-profile personalities from within the system. Isn't it curious?
Of course, Mr. Leo, it is regrettably embarrassing that in a state of law like Cameroon, we have had such cases, and many of them were never given such attention. That's why we're raising a lot of questions, a lot of eyebrows as to why this particular case. But that notwithstanding, I think every life matters. And in a state like us, in Cameroon, the state has the responsibility to provide absolute security for the citizens. But Cameroonians have suffered from a series of insecurity ranging from Boko Haram, the Anglophone crisis, and now we have assassination of Cameroonians by high state personalities, as it is being presumed, while awaiting the evidences. I would say it is quite much unfortunate, Mr. Leo, because for the past years, we've had cases like that of Wazizi. We've had cases like the senator who was blatantly murdered in Bamenda. Investigations were never opened into these personalities. And we begin to ask ourselves, are some Cameroonians are their lives more important than others? Then another question, state personnel. We have state personalities who should provide security for the citizens, are the ones behind the assassination of these citizens. Then we begin to ask ourselves, what is happening?
They are alleged to be behind.
Yes, once accused, I think once most of them have been arrested, it is already evident that they are being accused. That's why they are out for questioning.
They are presumed innocent.
Guilty. Exactly.
From that presumption.
Exactly. So I must say it is quite unfortunate that we live in such a kangaroo system, as my brother would put it. It is really regrettable.
Okay, you say it's regrettable. Fabrice Lena is set to be online. Fabrice, you are a politician living and yes, you are living and working in Yaoundé. How do you feel after the news came out that the big boss of the Anecdote group is taken in for questioning or auditioning at the level of set out there in Yaoundé alongside some close collaborators? You think that, I don't know, strong men no longer exist in Cameroon?
Well, good evening to you, Mr. Leo. Good evening to my brother Tata. Good evening to Barrister Tamfu and the other panelists. Good evening to everyone there. I will start by greeting those people that have been oppressed in Cameroon, those that have faced difficult times, especially the community of journalists and pressmen. Our hearts as politicians are with you in these tough times, because nearly all sectors of this country have suffered this kind of repressive measure one time of history. And this year, 2023, it's still with journalists after the situation of Wazizi, now the situation of Zogo. But what makes this more remarkable, different, spectacular is the fact that it's happening in the political capital. In the political capital, with the presence of diplomatic missions, with the presence of international human rights organizations, in the presence of the president, presidency, in the presence of politicians and strongmen of the country. That's what makes it to call a lot of attentions. Like I always say, when things happen in the peripheries of this country, less attention is paid to it or to people who live in the faraway regions of this country. But when it is in the political capital, there is a lot of attention because it's affecting directly the president, coupled with the fact that we know all the hyper-centralization of power in the political capital. Zogo's situation have called for an mutual distrust, fear and suspicion existing in Yaoundé amongst everyone. Like you can read the mood of the people. Everyone seems to be very cautious. Everyone seems to be watching the back. Everyone seems to be asking the question of, can justice be served? Will justice be served? What will happen next? Is it true that this strong businessman and the owner of so many media groups is going to be questioned? Well, everyone can see that as of this moment we are talking, he's under interrogations, which even if we say that the judicial system of the country has not always been serving justice or doing the right thing, for this first instance, by the pressure of Cameroonian people, the international partners of Cameroon, and reporters without many other people that have put pressure on the government to look into this issue, have decided to say yes. If everyone is expecting a particular person or group of persons, there is absolute need to really look into that, because there is always that dictum, there's no smoke without fire, and there's always that saying that the voice of the people is the voice of God, which means when majority of the people is talking about a particular thing, there should be absolute necessity of digging deep into that thing and seeing the veracity of the situation. Personally, at the level of the Popular Action Party, we condemn with the last energy of what we got as politicians, this kind of barbaric act against pressmen, against men of the media. We condemn also people who use political, economic, or any other kind of positions they have by whatever means they have it to intimidate.
Yes, Fabrice, you are still on. Okay, Fabrice, you just raised an issue. You say that when it happens in the periphery or at the level of the regions, nothing is done. This is happening because it has happened in Yaoundé, but we have cases that occurred in Yaoundé, and we did not see people apprehended and taken to law. We have had ritual killings in Yaoundé. We have had other journalists or other persons killed in Yaoundé. Are we not in this situation today because of what many persons call a war of camps at the level of Yaoundé?
In as much as we will say that it is because of the war of camps, we will also say that it's because first, Martinez Zogo had a spirit. He has a spirit. He was a kind of daring guy whose courage was like that of a warrior in the battlefield, who knows that he's going to receive a bullet at any time, but he's not afraid of the bullet anyway and ready to take it even if it comes. That's what made him different. The guy's way of articulating grievances, his program Embouteillage in Yaoundé, it was spectacular. There are some people that you cannot touch them like that, and their spirit goes scot-free like any other people. That's why there are men, maybe men, but men are different, you know, in their ways of exercising their professional duties. At the same time, Mr. Leo, in Yaoundé, it depends on the profession. I think that the media profession, the work of journalists, is one that is having a lot of sanctity. It's having a lot of sacrifice both mental and physical sacrifice. And so it caused a lot of attention because media and journalists saved all sectors of the economy, all sectors, whether it is politicians, religious men, economic operators, journalists saved all these people. And that is why most of these people, be it politicians or economic operators, when they reach a certain level, they always like to own media houses so that they can have whistleblowers, people who always sing their song. So not everyone will always sing the song of someone. In Yaoundé, the issue of camps have come at a point where the country is about to reach the breaking point, the elastic limit of things that Cameroonians are able to support as injustice to people of the lower echelon, as injustice to the masses, as injustice to people in different sectors. Throughout 2018 to 2022, we have had the COVID and it's unaccounted for money. We have had African Cup of Nations and it accounted for money, unaccounted for money with the numerous corresponding consequences. We have had teachers' manifestations with a lot of teachers that are unable to be paid and also a teacher who died because of that circumstance. And now we have a pressman that has been murdered in cold blood in Yaoundé because of the same circumstance. So you see, the temperature, the anger has been rising. People have been like they have teased the people a lot to a certain extent.
Okay, thank you.
So people are trying to condone with the government what is wrong. That's why the numerous reactions are coming now, and it's also because this thing is happening in the political capital. The aspect of the political capital is very important at the point where people are tired, people are exhausted, and people want change.
People want change. How do we understand the interest that the government has showed? Almost everybody is showing towards this case, and is receiving almost every sector of our national life wanting to get clear clarifications and actions for the situation of Martinez Zogo.
Well, the interest people have in the case is because it is not just an ordinary case. It's a case linked to certain personalities who are at loggerheads at the level of the top administrative setup in the country. They will understand what I'm talking, and they are watching me right now. And that's why you realize that the case is taking another move because, you know, in our investigating work, there is a kind of information when you give, the person, the concerned, knows that this information can only be given to you by another party. He knows already. So when we move over on files of COVID gate and all the like, by the moment we pronounce those files with precision on what time a letter left from point A to point B, what were the interests and the intricacies surrounding that particular discussion, which was said to have taken place backdoor, the concerned know that the way we're putting the information, somebody somewhere is playing the tambour. And it's as a result of this that you realize that even the Martinez Zogo was so sure of his revelations and he had a fact. If you listen to the radio broadcast, you see him playing audios that concerns voices of persons and the discussions and sending out documents that concerns particular contracts that were signed under fictitious or abnormal conditions. Now, because of these aspects, people are forced to have an interest on it because at the time he was releasing most of these sensitive information, his program was already drawing more attention because people were more concerned on discovering things they never knew they were existing before. And so, if you look at it, before he died or before he was brutally murdered, there's every indication that he had a source, a credible source. I mean a credible source, I repeat, not just any house source, because if his source was not credible, obviously he would have been dragged to the courts. Because as you know, for us who do investigating journalism, each time you have your facts on the ground, not even a single individual can order you to produce a fact except a competent court. And so in this case, the concerns in the whole saga had known that taking it to the court will require the court to ask him to bring the evidences which are there and which will be more incriminating. So that's why they had to take a shortcut to pass through the back door. As you see the way it's moving, and again, why are people so interested in the case? They're interested in the case because, not because of the fact that it concerns titans or titans of the regime, but also for the fact that the system in which we are operating had equally been pressing hard on the majority who would have been one, for example, picking up contracts, and they had tried and they could not get those contracts, and they constitute the majority. Now, for few persons to be involved in passing through particular lines of action within the government sector and going through scot-free tells you that people have a reason to take it serious. Now, another reason why the case is becoming so sharp and serious is that the persons who are presumed to be concerned in the different revelations made by Martinez Zogo are persons who had first of all been living what we call a root life, which means they have lived an arrogant life and climbing on so many persons, so that a majority of those who had been victim of these so-called persons became so interested, thereby praying that more revelation should be done.
Because that's the follow-up question I had for you, because when it was announced that the person was taken up today, was taken 2 days ago, almost everybody in Cameroon did not sleep, waiting to get feedback the next day, and the curiosity. And look at
you are right. If you go into your social media,
yes,
you
almost
see, when you count on social media, I've been there since 3 days from now. I realize that there are some co-sponsored responses. You know, it happens in propaganda mechanism, where some persons are there who will come and probably fight to defend this.
Yeah, why are people anxious to wanting to know what would possibly happen to this person, this particular person?
Yes, as I said, people are anxious to know because these persons are said to have acted otherwise in their public appearances against the wish of the people. Now, if you have a leader or a businessman who is arrogant, or who can dismiss a worker at will, and probably recruit at will, and who can flout the orders of another government sector, like the National Communication Council, for example, and who can speak in public at random, you know, uncontrollably. Now, these are the things that get a majority of the population on their nerves. And so by so doing, many, by the virtue of nature and the virtue of the character you portray towards them, will always be happy to see that you learned a bitter lesson from your pompous action. And so with all of this, you go to social media, you go to all of this, we are simply being professional to say that it's presumed. But if you ask many Cameroonians, they'll tell you that it's not presumed. Even if they don't have the evidences clear, they'll tell you that no, it is A or B or C or D. Now, the main issue again that gets people interested is that, you know, in the administrative setup, since as the kangaroo system said, there are some persons who can be there for life till their kingdom come. Now, other Cameroonians who get tired of this kind of persons and maybe have equally suffered one way or the other, directly or indirectly, from the hands of these persons, now pray that let the worst come to them so that they learn a bitter lesson. And so at the end of it, the euphoria is very high, I will tell you. You get a microphone on the street, you interview every 10 persons, 8 of them will tell you that let these persons, the thing, their names have been mentioned as presumed, let it be real, let it come finally to be true that their hands are really interested, so that they get it down. Look at from the rumor that came in and the reaction of some of those persons. It cannot tell you how arrogant the persons concerned were, and it's to tell you that they had some of them, for the fact that they had made Cameroonians to believe that l'État c'est moi or l'État c'est nous, just like Louis XVI.
Untouchable.
So many persons will want to see them go down.
Now, this communique was released by the Minister of State Secretary General at the Presidency, and it indicates that investigations carried out so far have led to the arrest of several individuals highly suspected of being involved in this heinous crime. Others remain wanted. Now, and we know that persons were taken again today, and many more are going to be taken. It's been so rapid, smooth, the way government is going with this case. Is it to say that when government wants, they can?
Yes, definitely. The government has everything at its disposal to serve justice when it needs to do. So I'm not surprised by the speedy investigations that are ongoing. I think Cameroon should pride itself to have the most equipped or trained professionals when it comes to police investigation. So if Cameroon wants to carry out any investigation, I don't see which obstacle can face them. So I'm not surprised by this speedy investigation, and I'm certain that the investigation will still reveal so many things, because, you know, when you look around the town of Yaoundé, you see cameras almost all over. So there is nothing that you can do in Cameroon and you hide yourself. Even if you are aware, they'll pick you. We have the most competent secret service. So just to tell you that any crime that you commit, you cannot go scot-free. So I am very confident that the investigations will carry on its due course, and I know that several persons will be apprehended. But we should not also rejoice so much, because arresting somebody does not make the person guilty. You know, when you are arrested, you are presumed innocent, and you still benefit from that presumption of innocence. So,
okay, is the court?
Yes, so the court is the person that is competent to declare your guilt, and we hope that after the investigation, proper evidence will be gathered, and then those people will be presented to the court, so that we are able to know who are the persons behind that brutal murder of Martinez Zogo.
If you say we have the best, Tata Mbinglo, you one day are aspiring to rule this nation, where is the problem? Is it at the level of the judiciary that is not doing their job, or the level of the executive that is trying to interfere in the smooth functioning of the judiciary? Because we have had so many cases. Many persons have cited the situation of Wazizi, Bibinguta, and a host of others. Senator Kemende. Is it the executive that is stifling the smooth functioning of the judiciary, or is the judiciary that is corrupt or lacks the means? Because you say they have all the means.
Yes, I think it is absolutely clear that the judiciary is not independent. Any judiciary system that is not independent, of course, cannot freely exercise its duties, especially with the case of Cameroon, where at times personalities are even being arrested, you know, with evidences, but calls come from above that please release this person immediately. So when we have a system like this, it is very, very difficult to effectively carry out justice. And worst of all, when most of the state personalities or those in charge of the justice system are part of the government, it is difficult for the judiciary system to act independently, because they have an influence. The government has, the executive has an influence over the judiciary. Now the Minister of Justice is there. Whatever the government wants, he exercises. He simply executes decisions from hierarchy. So whatever the case is, it depends, the judgment comes from the executive. This makes it very, very difficult for justice to prevail in Cameroon. It is very clear, even when the lawyers were being harassed, some of them were being brutally beaten. As a Ministry of Justice, these are the first personalities of the law to be protected. Unfortunately, it was a kind of a normal scenario, and it ended just like that. We have had several cases like this in Cameroon, where we have instances of human rights violation, gross human rights violation, and the state stays off. The judiciary stays off. This is a clear indication that the judiciary works for the executive. They simply execute instructions from above.
Fabrice Lena, I want us to go to the spectacular manner of eliminating Martinez Zogo. What actually gave the authors this confidence to be able to do this in this fashion and within the political capital of Cameroon, knowing that the capital also has almost every factor that may easily get to the authors of such a crime, but they decided to do it in a very spectacular manner? Was it also a way of sending a strong message to some of us?
When God wants to make a wicked person pay for his crimes, he first of all makes such a person mad, so that madness can be used as a means to first of all punish you, such that you can lament for the crimes that you have been committing. Most of the time, when you see situations like this happen, the first thing that comes to the mind is a person that has killed or have the mind to kill does not know how it is, the extent to which his action can go to cause not only a change at the level of his own personal status or his downfall, but the whole country. The Zogo incident is a very spectacular one, as you have put it. And it is something that, if care is not taken, it is what will bring down so many big heads, not only in Yaoundé, but in Cameroon. When you look at the circumstances leading to his murder, it's like a prophecy. It's like fulfilling a prophecy. Because the guy himself predicted that people will come after him. In his last program, he was saying it, that I know they will come for me. I am not afraid. I am ready for it. Understand? And now, the perpetrators were listening to this message. And the person who actually gave the command that go and kill this person was listening to this message. And they did not back out. They did not say that, no, let's not do this. They do not think about the situation of the country. They do not think about the tension in the country. This is working in favor of the Cameroonian people. This is the right time for the Cameroonian people, like never before, to rally with something that is federated everyone, something that has pained everyone, something that has touched everyone, to say that let the government, the judiciary arm of the government, render justice. Let there be accountability for every single soul. Let the media, let the journalists be awakened like never before and be guarded against such macabre action that is happening in the country. You wanted to ask a question, Mr. Liu.
No. The question still remains. The confidence with which the authors have to be able to carry out was it to send a strong message to some of us and to be clear that we are in command? Or how would people not understand that the state has almost everything at their disposal to be able to bring people to book? Was the consideration that we are the state?
Well, the reason for the brutal murder of Martinez Zogo, some reasons can account for that or accounts for that. Reason number one, it was for the concerned to send a very strong warning and message to some of us who blow our mouth like weaver birds and blow the grammar from left to right, uncovering the evil acts of some of these persons within the ranks and files of the state. And so to them, that is why, if you look at the murder, shortly after the murder, they would have equally discarded the body, probably buried, without anyone knowing. But in fact, they had to go and dump somewhere, knowing that in broad daylight, people will discover, surely autopsy will arrive at, and then it would be certain that he was murdered in this brutal way, tongue pulled out, bodies mutilated, so that the other media persons who are like poking their nostrils into the affairs of the hoodlums in question will start being very scared that tomorrow might be their own turn. Reason number one, you want to hear very well. Reason number two, to those from the nation's capital who are watching live, was that according to the perpetrators of this act, they could not allow the issue to go through the normal court of law. Because through a normal court of law, many things could be revealed even if they were to call on instruction for the verdict to be thwarted. The reason that if it goes to the normal court of law, it means Martinez Zogo will still be alive. And even he slams a 20-year-old germ under the manifestation of injustice, it would have still been that his being alive would have wanted him to still reveal some other shocking things that will downplay on the existence of this cabal. That is the reason why they now knew that the only way to stop the file, knowing that he started episode by episode, revealing startling revelations concerning dubious contracts, concerning dubious moves by some of these state personnel, and knowing that he might get into more dirty files that could uncover many other things, the only way was to wipe him from existence, such that further evidences that would have come forth will no longer have their way to surface. But as I said, you could be thinking of one reason to do so that you discard the body for media person to see and be scared, but by so doing, you little did they know that they were implicating themselves. If they had equally buried him, for example, I am sure the hit would not have been this way, because people in Yaoundé and media persons are getting wild, not just because he was murdered, but because he was brutally murdered in a way that even your chicken in the house, they want to kill on a festive day. You don't kill that chicken in that manner. So it means that the things as their intention was to send a bitter signal. The bitter signal, according to the autopsy report, which more of it is still to be made known officially in the days ahead by the competent medical authorities, will tell you that even the devil cannot carry that kind of hideous crime. That means that the persons have become worse than the devil himself. So you start asking yourself, then when is the position of the devil? You cannot go into Satan's kingdom. You become worse than Satan. Until Satan is asking you, Mullah, Master, man, how you don't do the thing so? You want to do this, so tells me go do them if I worry. So it means that even Satan is remorseful. But you can look at it that since we are living in a sphere of occultism and so many other things attached to it, that explains why this aspect of sodomizing or sodomy came into play. And as I said, for many of you who have been listening to Ateba Ewane, you realize that he had given many revelations as regarding the issue of the sodomy, homosexuality, and other like within the ranks and files of the system. Now, unfortunately, too, he too was booted out of the show. So it means that if I get detailed into those shows and get into the hot files, that's how to do the calculation to boot me out of the show. So I know as they are watching, they should not bother. But one thing is clear. You could kill a human being. I said sometimes, for those who killed Monsignor Mbala, his lordship, that's the Archbishop. Now you realize that virtually for those who understand that story, many things happened within that period. And though we cannot ascertain because we are not God, but there were some surprise deaths that took place within some ranks and files, which people say it could equally have been linked. Because, you know, with God, there are certain things you could do and go free without even man catching you, but there is what we call natural justice that runs after you, whether you like it or not. So these are the consequences we are getting. But I think while things are falling apart, the regime, after this investigation, must come back to all those outstanding persons who have been killed. You will come back to it and start investigation from square one. Okay.
Well, the spectacular nature of this assassination and the methods, the boldness, the confidence, is it to say that it also had to do with a network, a powerful network, and that this case is going to bring down so many persons?
Yes, I think when I listened to the reporter of is it a Report Without Borders? There's a reporter that explained that this kind of murder was not done by these common thieves, because if it was done by these common thieves, maybe they could use their gun and then they just pull their trigger and then the person just goes off. So he said that this murder was done by experts, and from the name he cited, you understand. Remember, these are trained military officials who maybe know exactly how to silence somebody, or maybe if they need to kill you or assassinate you, there is a way of sending a message. Because it was not just only killing Martinez Zogo, but it was also sending a message to whosoever would try to dare or try to be or try to do the kind of journalism that he was doing. You see, they had all the means maybe to shoot a gun at him, but they didn't, or maybe bury the corpse, but they didn't, and they treated him as they did, brought it to the public just to tell the national and international, or the national and international opinion that this is the kind of things that will befall on any person who tries to venture into that direction. So the killing was done by experts, and when you want to believe that what might have happened, that this kind of service of the state should be implicated into this kind of killing, you have so many questions to pose yourself. How come that they will use this kind of instrument of the state to perpetrate this kind of act? Meaning that in Cameroon, if they can buy this kind of service, then we are all finished, because nationals can buy this service, this state service, international bodies can buy this state service to perpetrate whatever actions they want on Cameroonians. So it is really a very serious thing that I think should be handled with a lot of care. And like I said, there is no other person who rules this country. It is the head of state. If we are at this point that we are today, it's because he himself has his own responsibility. How do you explain that you appoint people into offices and they be there for 11 years without you reshuffling? The Minister of Justice has been there for 11 years. And people who has been his close friends knew that they could do anything that they like, and anytime he goes to court, their friend will easily take the file and put under the drawer. So that explains the boldness, the courage. And we know that money buys anything. That is what they portray to us, that with money they can do, they can decide when you have to leave, and they take your life when they want. So I think these are some of the things that really galvanized these people. Money was used to buy a state institution, a respectable state institution like the Secret Service. Money was used to maybe buy some of those journalists. So just to tell you that the whole system was bought, and with the complicity of some other state officials. That is why you see all of them were very confident, and they knew that by posing this act or by assassinating him.
I'll ask you one last question. Good evening, Mr. Leo. The program is wonderful. Why has the president of the National Communication Council not spoken? Or is it that his hands are tied? Njadze David is writing from Wa. He has not spoken, but the Minister of Communication went to the station where Martinez Zogo actually worked. He also made an outing telling Cameroonians what the nation think about what has happened to our fallen colleague. But the question I had for you is, it has to do with the law. It has happened to Martinez Zogo. What should follow?
Yes, concerning the case,
yes,
I think after the investigation, because proper investigations need to be carried, evidence needs to be gathered. They should have everything, every evidence against those persons who are arrested. And after that, the persons need to be referred to a court where they will be judged.
All of them are presumed innocent.
Because all of them are presumed innocent.
All of them are presumed innocent, so, barrister. But before you are taken to an instance like this, is it hearsay, or they must be sure? I'm talking about the elements of the National Gendarmerie and police.
Yes,
they must be sure about
the law. The law says that the judicial police officers who carry on the investigations before they arrest you like this, they might have gathered a lot of evidence. Those evidence are there, but they are not the ones to really say that you are guilty. They will present maybe those elements to you. For example, if there are videos, if there are some confessions that were made, because they can arrest somebody and he comes and say that it is you who sent me, this is the voice note, or these are the messages. So when they have all those elements gathered, they will now confront you with it. And when they confront you with it, they take your statement. What have you to say with respect to this? Maybe after your deposition, there will be maybe a confrontation among the parties, the suspected parties. And after the investigations where there are clear evidence that you cannot deny, maybe there is a picture, there is a video of you committing the act, they cannot judge you there, they cannot sentence you. It's only a court of law that will be able to do that. So they will send the file with all the evidence to the court, so that when you go to court now, you have the right to defend yourself. You'll be able to have the right to a lawyer to express yourself and defend the case.
Now, Mbinglo, Tata, in this case, we have seen the judiciary that may not really have a free hand in handling the situation. Would you expect the executive to mount pressure for the case to be treated the way it is going? Because some persons may be afraid that, okay, we hand this thing over to the judiciary, they may play right.
Well, I think it all depends on the interest of the executive. If they have no interest to protect, they should demand for justice with all the substantial evidences. As I said earlier on, the judiciary of Cameroon is not independent, and it makes it difficult for them to effectively carry out their task. So hopefully we're looking forward to see surprises in this particular case, owing to the fact that the head of state had instructed that he expects a report and the persons involved in this act arrested. It means the state is already very vigilant. The state is watching and expecting results, because at this point, I think their hands are tied. They need to present the state.
Okay.
That is why the head of state himself has ordered that a report, investigations, and arrest of these persons should be done, because at this point, Cameroonians are expecting results from the head of state. So justice for sure will be served to the Cameroonian population.
Okay.
And just to add, because the way I think the question is asking, you want to know whether after this investigation from the head of state, where is he going to send it?
Should the head of state wash his hands? That okay, the judiciary take this case?
No, because at this point in time, they are having, the judiciary too is faultless. They are having some doubts about the judiciary. Maybe the head of state is going maybe to set a special tribunal to judge this person. Because there is already a military court. I was telling you, there is a military court. The military court is not handled, is not under the immediate authority of the Minister of Justice. The military court is under the authority of the Minister of Defense. So probably this case file will not be handed to the normal court. It will be handed maybe probably to the military court. And at the military court, he is still, the President of the Republic will be the person to have an eye on the magistrate that will sit to handle the case. So I think that that may be the distinction that you wanted to know, whether they will send it to the Minister of Justice, who is a friend to the other person, and that will maybe want to silence the file.
What about the special criminal court? Can they also?
No, these are financial crime. So I think the probable way is that this case at the end of the day will be referred to a military court, where the Minister of Defense is the superior body, and then the President of the Republic.
Fabrice Lena, as you are seated in Yaoundé, you've seen the way things are unfolding since instructions came from the head of state for clarity to be made and those involved to be punished. Are you confident of what is going to be the outcome of the process? How would you want it managed? That it be handed to the judiciary to continue, or the fact that the presidency should have a very close eye on the way the case is going to be managed?
Yeah, Mr. Liu, first and foremost, there is no case in Cameroon that the presidency don't have any control over. All cases in Cameroon, as far as investigations is concerned, the first and preliminary report goes to the President of the Republic, irrespective of the arm of government. And to add, all the investigations, at the end, it is the President of the Republic. I don't trust, and I don't trust neither the judicial arm of our government. Not today, it's from way back. Since the days of the Anglophone crisis, the situation of Wazizi, to the Afcon Gate, Can Gate, right up to this Zogo murder, we have a lot of cases, Mr. Liu. The Ezeka incident, and so on and so forth. So it's not today that...
Okay, we have issues there with lines. Okay. Fabrice, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Yes, just land. Make your point to the end. Fabrice, can you make your point to the end? Just continue.
Yes, I'm saying that I don't trust the judiciary or the executive arm of the government, because they have never rendered any real justice to situations of injustice in this country. From the track record of all major incidents that have happened in this country, where there is clamor for justice by the people of Cameroon. So in the case of Zogo, there is no confidence. There is no confidence, unless it's going to be a situation where they always say the difficult pill to swallow. And sometimes it reaches that level where the president might decide to render a partial justice, complete justice, depending on the amount of pressure that the people put. You know, sometimes when criminal acts are being committed in your neighborhood or your community, you think that it does not concern you. You might be the chief of that area or the person in charge of law and order in that area. You say it doesn't concern you. But the day those acts come right into your own household, then you will be bound to take decisions that might be very rigid or stringent in order to put order in that, not only in your own household, but in that community. So this is the same situation, because we are talking of Zogo, who comes from Lekie division of the central region of Cameroon. You know what it means, you know, in the current context of Cameroon. So the President of the Republic, the judicial arm of the government, the Ministry of Justice, Defense, the Constitutional Council, as well as all the stakeholders involved with the regime, CPDM-led regime, are all in the tight corner, because they are not only having pressure of within Cameroon, but also outside Cameroon. Remember, there is a lot of treaties, conventions that Cameroon has ratified as far as protecting people's civil and political rights are concerned, as far as press freedom is concerned. And when those international organizations to which Cameroon is a member state see that Cameroon government, there is violation of rights, right to the extent of forced disappearance or murder, there is call for consent, there is call for accountability, there is call for report. So I think that a justice can be saved based on pressure and not based on sincerity of those in power, willing, because they are not. By the way, if we want to look at the record of all major activities in this country that have been like murder cases, forced disappearance incidents, most of these people are implicated. And there is light issue.
Okay. Let me take one or two messages. Good evening to the crew on board. I am a keen listener to your program. I wish to know why Martinez Zogo assassination is more important than Honorable Barrister Kemende Henry. Is it because Honorable Barrister Kemende Henry is from the northwest and southwest regions, and Martinez Zogo is from the east Cameroon or Yaoundé, that more time is taken by all TV stations in Cameroon when things or news or assassinations like this happen and serious attention is given? Okay. Fred is writing from Boya. Good evening to you, Fred. But you know I will not read it the way you are writing it now. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Does it mean if you are not a journalist, your life means nothing? I say so because yesterday we buried a lady that was kidnapped and murdered in Betua with no culprit, no investigations, nothing. The family has just had to go carry the carcass of their child and come bury in Bamenda. All lives matter. Fritz is writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, Fritz. Good evening, Mr. Kum and crew on board. Those involved in this heinous crime should be televised and shown in the various media houses. Criminals should not be hidden. Are we safe in this country? That's a question in rhetoric. Hilary Punti Wansambi is writing from Banja. Good evening to you. Hello, good evening, Mr. Leo and the fellow panelists. Please, I want to ask why the case of Zogo is peculiar. Why is it as if some Cameroonians are better than others because the case of Wazizi is still very fresh in our minds? Are we even sure that Wazizi died because if yes, then where is his dead body? I want to say that if this government is for Cameroonians, then justice should be equal for all, not only Zogo. Mr. Goloff is writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, Mr. Goloff. We are moving straight to our second talking point. We hope we have time to go even to the third, which has to do with the Anglophone president. Now, is this also the time for Cameroon to have an Anglophone as president?
Well, I think it's even overdue.
Okay.
It's even overdue. Because when they say two persons came together, I don't know under what condition they came together, because from every indication it shows that one person is already carrying out an aspect of swallowing the other. And so the aspect of the vivre ensemble and making it in such a way that one person has to be the lord or the leader at all times, it is wrong. It is completely wrong. That's why I said that we have to do everything, because where we are today is as a result of what we are currently witnessing. That you go to Canada, you discover that, all right, in the French-speaking part, when president comes from here, prime minister comes the other way. After some time, after 2 mandates, they alternate. You know, that is what we're supposed to have. If we had this issue of arrogance of the highest order in the kangaroo system would not have taken precedence as we find it right now. So the president's situation we find now is because of the fact that most persons, especially those who manage the country, in line with in collaboration with the colonial master France, because I tell people several times that there is not a day in the French-speaking African countries that France does not determine who is the next leader. That's what most of us don't even know. That we could. Yeah,
but the situation is different in Mali and Burkina Faso and Guinea.
Yes, it's different in that those who were equally, who took the bull by the horn, you know, had to override the presidency. Now, the question is, the circumstances which warrants them to override the presidency, thereby sending France away, is not the same circumstance we have here. I've told people several times that it takes the grace of God to unseat the kangaroo system in Yaoundé. Why? Because they have built a hegemony of divide and rule. Now, just look at what happened in Magba. Now, if I tell you that this is a kangaroo state, you will not believe it. That a traditional way is undressed in public. Until now, those who did that act were supposed to have been sent at the Bafousta Central Prison. I mean, the man who came closer to the chief of Magba, who came, we saw him dressed, I think his purple t-shirt, because that's the ringleader who started by seizing the microphone from him and removing the cover. Now, if we are talking about this, what happens? This SGO in Noon, just by banning the tour of the Sultan, has not solved the problem. Because these persons who mastermind, people know them. They were supposed to be rounded up, bundled in trucks, and sent to Bafoussam. If Bafoussam is full, they send them to the other prisons in Buda. If it's full, they send some of them here in Douala and elsewhere. Because if these things are done once in a while, people will have what it takes to think twice before they act. Now, sometimes, even in Balmayo, people from the West region, their shops were looted by the youths in that area. And I tell you that till today, none of those perpetrators of those acts are in prison today. But if we find out that you want to agitate in Northwest, Southwest, Wahala comes out. They will not come out with water cannons, they will come out with live bullets. So you discover it's like some persons are treated differently, while others are treated the other way around. And so the main thing here is that if the state is honest, because if you are not honest, one day you will see the thing dividing on its own. If you are not honest to say, okay, this is the time for the president to come. And what kind of president are we saying, Mr. Liu? Because the topic is good. But what kind of president are we talking about? If you take a delegated president from the CPDM cabal, for example, and you say he should take over, it will not solve the Anglophone crisis. Because obviously it will be a puppet put in place to blindfold us. Yeah,
but he also has the rights now.
No, when you say has the right, Mr. Liu, the question is, what kind of president are we talking about?
Okay.
Because some people will just say Anglophone, Anglophone. If you put those delegated songbirds, you will discover that they might become worst. I'm telling you, for example, Mr. Liu, that even what we experience in Boya, you'll be surprised that in their usual round-up called Kale Kale, when we move out and stumble over them early in the morning when we want to go to work, you discover that those who are very brutal to us are the English-speaking. On the other hand, you see someone on his chest written Bida, and he will tell you, no, grand, less. If you pass it, come, if you pass it, come, sir. Why the other English-speaking is the one shouting, that sit down. So what does it mean? It means that if we're talking about our Anglophone president, it is even overdue. But the question is, it should be that kind of person who should be able to call the shot and turn the tides of the table. If you take the songbirds we know now, these ones have been gallivanting the corridors in the name of senators, parliamentarians, and put there. We will one day say probably I should even come back times 10, because some of these ones will work. But they have, it is if they were to be given the opportunity, they also have the right to stand as president. Is this the time for Anglophones to be given that chance to run this nation? And even if it is done, how should that be done? Should Anglophones be given the latitude to decide who stands as their president, or it should be something constitutional?
You know that we cannot just sit here and say we want an Anglophone president. I think if we have to do that, then we are no more in the country. I think we have to work for it.
Okay.
The call is legitimate. After two French sitting presidents, I think having hopes or maybe having wishes that we should have a third president which should be an Anglophone, I think is legitimate, but there is much to be done. It will not be given as if it was meal that they were serving to you.
It will not be decreed.
Good. So we need to engage more Anglophones into politics. We need to be able to come out with that Anglophone kind of leader we need, and we need to maybe push that person to that seat. So I expect that the person, or if we have some Anglophones who are interested into that leadership seat, they should be able to tell Cameroonians what they are up to. They should be able to sell their image. We have seen how the French people are doing it. They sell their vision to Cameroonians and encourage. And it's not only Anglophone Cameroonians who are going to vote. The English president too has to go to the French-speaking regions and sell the vision there to them. So I think if we put all those ingredients into one seat, we can hope that.
Yeah, but this is a cry.
It's not something that will be given.
This is a cry from some persons. But do you think that even within political parties, this should be a decision? Because we have big parties like the NUDP, you have the CRM, you have this. You can only become a candidate through a political party. Should this thought start also being articulated at the level of respective parties?
Definitely, if it is the fervent wish or the majority wish of people that they want an Anglophone president, the persons who are projecting themselves today as Anglophone future presidents should approach those political parties and have collaboration talks with them to say, okay, you agree with me that we have always been at the second position. We have, since 1960, we have been observing Francophones. The second president was a Francophone. Don't you think that an Anglophone should be? And I think if you have that kind of discussion with them, maybe some of them will see reason that, yes, actually, it is time for us to put our support to you. And not only relying on that, I say the biggest part of it, don't forget that we have 8 French-speaking regions out of 2. So you also have to do the majority of the work at those 8 French-speaking regions. So carry a message there to them, sell it to them, and see the people that will buy the idea. So I think it's not just something that you sit and then say, no, it is time for us to have an Anglophone president, and you think that it will come your way like this. So I think we have to work for it. And the only way to go about it is that encourage people to register.
Okay.
I think yes, Anglophones should have the interest of politics. You know, with what is happening in the Northwest and Southwest, so many Anglophones have lost trust into political activities. So it is time to galvanize them back and tell them that there is hope. And not only stay within those 2 regions, move to the French-speaking regions and tell them that we are brothers. If the first president was French-speaking, second president was French-speaking, I think they should also see how they could support or vote for an English-speaking president. A
competent English-speaking.
Exactly, definitely.
Yes, Mr. Tata, you are aspiring to one day run this nation. But like he says, Anglophones themselves should show proof of wanting to run the nation, because being a politician is one thing, and just wanting to have some MPs, municipal councillors, and becoming a president is another. Do we need to start seeing Anglophones telling Cameroonians that I want to lead? I would not just want to be seen as a politician, but fronting to wanting to take over the top job in Cameroon?
Well, that's very correct, Mr. Leo, but I listened keenly to Barrister Tamfu and the Kangaroo Man, and I thought there were some controversies over their points, because yes, they are very ready for an Anglophone president, but they do not rally behind an Anglophone president. This is factual. I have spoken to them and I have assured them that this is our time as Anglophones to go out there. They
could become candidates in their party.
That's what I think he does not even understand.
Definitely, I was coming there.
All right.
Definitely, every party has its leadership. Now, knowing very well who the candidates are already campaigning for the upcoming elections, I can bet you that in their respective parties, Anglophones are not yet projected as presidential candidates. I went out for campaigns, let me not say campaign, mobilization.
Yeah.
And it was in the littoral. When I spoke to most of the Francophones, they asked me a question. Now, if we rally behind you as our president, will your Anglophone brothers do same? It was a very challenging question. And that is the reality about it all. We want an Anglophone. At the same time, we are not standing for an Anglophone president. It is evident. So all I can say is this. Let's call a spade a spade. It is time for an Anglophone to be the president of this country, irrespective of who that might be. If we galvanize our efforts and stand for an Anglophone president in the upcoming elections, as a people, as a common people with a common voice, we shall get to the mountaintop, for sure.
Okay, we shall get to the mountain top. Fabrice Lena, if you are there, do you also think that if we want an Anglophone president in Cameroon, you guys who are the politicians should start by telling Anglophones that this is a time for us to be president by coming together and presenting a convincing manifesto or project to tell them that this is our time?
Exactly, Mr. Liu, and that's why the Popular Action Party has stood its ground from time without number to always present an Anglophone candidate for presidential elections in this country. When you look at the different political parties in Cameroon, Mr. Liu, that question comes to call all Anglophones who are into different political parties and aspiring to be leaders to ask themselves if they are playing the role of the stakeholders or the underdogs. The tendency is that in Anglophone political parties, there is always that need for us to balance by bringing Francophones to have equivalent positions or competitive positions with us. Because by our very nature of political order, we believe in competitive politics and primaries in political parties for those who are competent enough to emerge as the leaders, be it parliamentary or presidential elections. But when you look at the setup of most of these political parties, Mr. Liu, which are basically from the French-speaking side, because we cannot ignore the fact that apart from the CBM, most political parties are regional. Regional because of the nature of the divide and rule system and how multi-party politics is tactful and the tax in this country. When you look at the way most of these political parties are run, there is that difficulty for Anglophones to emerge as national presidents or presidential candidates in most of these parties. And this is because there is still that bias, mutual distrust, fear and suspicion that is existing between these two groups of people. What is the way forward? There are two roadmaps to us consolidating this idea of Anglophone president and making it move forward. Either we first of all clamor for constitutional amendment that will permit for rotating presidency, which will not depend on the vote of the people, but will depend on rotation of candidates put concordant in different sides in order to fight for the presidency, or we as Anglophones in different political parties extract ourselves into a strong group. I just want to take the example of us here. Mr. Richard is of the CRM. My brother, Mr. Tayong, is of the CRM. We have the CMC president there. I am of the PAP. Just imagine this force coming under a singular political umbrella. It can start as a movement. We maintain our different political parties, but we started as a movement, and this movement emerged eventually to become a political party. One of the reasons why, when Tata came up with his ambition to be a presidential candidate, irrespective of the fact that I belong to a PAP, but I have supported his objective, is because we should start looking at that narrative of us as youths and as Anglophones to start challenging to that ultimate seat and building a grassroots of network. I want to reiterate that there was a moment when myself, President Jean Denis Tabe, Koso, Agbobala, and the rest of others, we started holding meetings and discussing this issue of Anglophone president, because it does not only have to limit itself at the level of political aspirants. We need the economic, civil society, religious elite of English-speaking community in and out of the country to come in this umbrella of clamoring. But it needs to have a roadmap. We need to go either constitutionally or institutionally. And if we are going institutionally, it's through a political party, a political movement, or a political platform. If we are going constitutional, it's through a pressure or clamor or demand for reforms that will modify the constitution and permit that we should have a rotatory presidential system of Anglophone, Francophone, or two Francophone, one Anglophone, as it appears in other countries. This all depends on the strength. Politics is not by declaration. Politics is by show of power, is by show of ability, is by show of capability of you influencing the stakeholders to that level where they can take decisions either by pressure and most especially in the 21st century, advisably by non-violent actions, which will yield better fruits and avoid maybe putting the country and the citizens that we are fighting for to better their lifestyle into chaos. Because for me and of the PAP, if whatever thing we are fighting for is not to better the lives of those we are fighting for, then it is a wrong fight. If whatever thing we are fighting for is not putting the people first, then we are putting a wrong fight. So if we look at our number, we look at our communities, and we look at what we are able to do, and we evaluate our force, there is absolute need, Mr. Liu, for, first of all, hosting this kind of topic is a great initiative. Let the media of the English-speaking community also copy the example. Let's discuss these things. It's from the discussion that other ideas will emerge, and bringing heads together will lead us to that path route, to that roadmap of attaining. But I'm very confident that the English-speaking community will have a president in the third or the fourth republic of Cameroon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Fabrice. Mr. Liu, thank you for such a wonderful program, and greetings to the Kangaroo Man. The problem is not even the president, but the persons put under the full
capital flow within the areas that have been abandoned for long, while cutting across the entire country. Now, the main issue there is how do we go about it? That is $1 million question. And I think that we have to always be somehow very practical in the analysis, because things are easier said than done, you know. We could sit here and enumerate several things on how it is easy to put it in place and all the like. Now, the question now is, how do we go about it? Now, you realize that to get an Anglophone manned this country is not biscuits. Let me say this clear. Not that we cannot, and not that we should not. Why do I say it's not biscuit? If you look at the fact that we have the majority and the minority. Now, when you take 10 regions against 2 regions, it's approximately you are taking about 3 million as against 22 million. Now, in that margin, this is simple calculation. Let's not just be daydreaming because we want to talk. Now, it means that if you are going by the election as per se, you discover that first, your minority already plays a role. That is why the conflict we have now is good in that the conflict that is currently touching the country now can easily force the regime to come to a consensus, because when they come to a consensus, they can now put in place measures to prevent further conflict, which will now be enacted as law. That note that for this period, if vice president, or for this period now, because if we finish the conflict now,
that's constitutionally
correct. It means that to any degree now, you say that people go and decide who to be a president, while vice president comes in. Now, after the next 2 mandates, the next presidency goes to the French side, and the vice president comes this other way, with particular provisions inscribed in the law as to who will be deputy and who will be the main person. Now, if the law does not work on this, any politician, this is why I'm not talking about my mouth, any politician who sits on the platform and tells you that this is a move that is possible to go, will be building castles in the air. Leo, let me learn. I will tell you that to break through the French caucus is not biscuit. For example, if I have to leave now, to say let's form a coalition of English-speaking persons aspiring to lead, it's very possible. Now, how do we penetrate to the French region? Say Bafoussam, Ngandere, Marwa, Garwa. You will meet resistance because they too will tell you that they want to also taste the presidency. Why? They will tell you that for long, the Bulus have been in charge. Now, the people in the West want to come in. While those in the 3 northern region, they will call it Grand North, we tell you that no, Haijo was rudely booted out of the show when his money had not yet expired. We think that it's our turn for us, the northerners, to come back in and complete that his money. You see where the whole issue comes very complex. And so at the end of it, you realize that if situations like this does not come in for a law to be put in place, we will be blowing grammar today, tomorrow, the day after. And so at the end of it, if within us, as I tell you, Mr. Leo, how many Anglophones are there who like you? Very few.
That's the question.
No, you escape the point.
That's the question.
Because that is the issue. Some will tell that you're people of the Republic.
Yes.
And I mean, your own brothers, the ones that you know, I'm not talking about those that are far. And then some call us names as we move on and on. And so they will be the first person to fight you. And so, but if a law is put in place, they now know that presidency comes from here. The French themselves will have no choice. We have maybe 2 English presidents standing in. We go into the French zone to campaign. Since they don't have a choice, because the presidency must be English speaking, it will be depending on how maybe myself and by Satanfo we campaign on the field. If he campaigns more than me and targets more of the region, they'll say, okay, if we're going to do avocala, plutôt allo journalist, and it goes. So these things matter a lot. If we don't approach this phase at the level of reality, anybody who sits, this is not grammar and blowing, it's reality. To say that you can just sit overnight, you work out caucus, work out plans, and to become president every day. If the French speaker who are the majority don't want you to be, you'll be singing a song and blowing grammar in the air. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Kum. If the constitution of this country is not written, give room for alternation between Anglophones and Francophones in the presidency. It is impossible for an Anglophone to be president of the country. Frundi won the elections to the presidency in 1992, and his victory was seized by the regime in power. What do you say about that? Wichwi Barnabas, writing from Bamenda. This one says, we all know. Good evening, Mr. Coleman. Talking about an Anglophone president, we all know how Anglophones have ever struggled and suffered to achieve anything good in the country. Even to have a university, there was bloodshed. Cameroonians have been groomed to bring conflicts, especially in conflicts in politics when it comes to Anglophones and Francophones, okay? Let's not also forget that the son of Isu and his wife were brutally murdered about a year ago, and no investigation have been carried out by the government. Okay, we hear people have been summoned in relation to the death of the son of Isu. People have been summoned for questioning in Bamenda, those who moved with the convoy of the fund from Isu to Wei for the installation of the fund of Wei. Those who moved, the notables that came to Wei and went back before that tragic incident have been called up for questioning in Yaoundé. No, in Bamenda. Good evening to you, Mr. Liu, and the entire panel. Just like one of you said, we don't just want an Anglophone president, but a genuine leader. We may still have an Anglophone president at a today, yet we have a secretary from the Francophone part of the country that tells him what to and what not to do, just like we have in the few ministerial offices that Anglophones are heading. Theo Bimstier, writing from Yaoundé. Now, he raised an issue. Anglophone president, yes, but the division amongst Anglophone is scary.
Yes, I think that's even a major challenge. We all know that if we are having this crisis in the Northwest and Southwest, because we don't love for ourselves. If it is not you, no other person, we cannot sit and agree on something. So we have our own internal fights that I think we first of all have to clear it out, because there are some Anglophones today who will tell you that categorically that they want a unitary system. Others will tell you that they want a separatist system. Others will tell you that they want a federated system. I think we first of all need to agree on which form of the state will be suitable for us to support that candidate. So if we have a candidate who is coming, for example, maybe with a federated state, and if a majority of the Anglophones are not in tandem with him, I don't think they will support him. And also now, when we have that ready now, transporting it now to the other French-speaking regions, because if you don't have the support of those French-speaking Cameroonians, I think it's not something for you to dare. So we have to, you need to be able to sell that vision to them. If they buy it, then I think you can then remain hopeful. So we have this internal fighting within ourselves, Anglophones, that we first of all have to settle it.
Okay.
If we are able to know which form of state we want, once you are clear with that now, I think you can now carry that aspiration maybe to try to see how you can convince the other French-speaking Cameroonians. So it's, without trying to be pessimistic like my friend Ta, I think there are hopes if we decide to sell our image, because, you know, Anglophones have lost a lot of trust as far as politics. Many of them don't want even this union again. So you need to first of all try to even make a small referendum in those two regions to see exactly where does the balance weigh. If we are able to maybe come out successful with maybe a federated system, then now I think if we try to sell it to this other side with a decentralized unitary state, I think some of them can buy the system and then try to vote you into office.
Yes, but the Anglophones who buy the decentralized unitary state system. Mr. Kum, give equal time to your panelists. Please, I cannot add words to what people have to say. If they stop speaking, I have to give it to another person. There is tribalism in the justice system in Cameroon. The Cameroon government should equally carry out investigations on the death of Wazizi. Gerard is watching from Dubai. CPDM can never solve the Anglophone crisis with a mediator. Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and I love your program. Talking about Anglophone president in Cameroon, to me, is a waste of time. Anglophone system is different from the other side. The prime minister of this country is an Anglophone, but he has no power. Yes, but he's prime minister. We're talking about actually having the president of the republic. The president of the republic is different from a prime minister now because he decides. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and everyone on the panel, especially Mr. Tata. To my opinion, and with present dispensation, an Anglophone can never enter today. With the minds of the others today, they can never vote for an Anglophone to power. The only person we smelled it was Frundi. For Anglophone can only emerge if the constitution permits. Yosimbom Suleiman is writing from Ngaundure. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Daniel from Bamenda. How can Anglophones rally behind any Anglophone party when we know how corrupt this country is? Before elections, we already know the emerging parties, so no need to waste efforts to support our own when we know the efforts will go nowhere. Yes, people are pessimistic. They fear that you cannot win. From every indication, the constitution will need to guarantee this. But even if the constitution guarantees that, how do you reconcile Anglophones? You know how very divided we are.
Yes, Mr. Leo, it is very unfortunate. This is not the first of its kind. I remember back in 2009, in the University of Boya, before I emerged as a University of Boya Student Union President, there were a lot of doubts because back then I was just 22 years old. And I listened to a handful of students and their opinion was like, this guy is too young and we don't think he can handle the situation. But I'm always very optimistic and I believe in myself. I know what I'm capable of doing. I've done it before. One problem with us, the Anglophones, we see negativity in everything.
Okay.
Go and vote, register and vote. They will tell you my vote will not count. We need an Anglophone president. It will never happen. But the good thing is, God is not man. In life, everything is possible. Blacks went to America as slaves. No one saw Martin Luther King coming. No one saw Barack Obama coming. God did. It will happen in Cameroon. Cameroon is made up of 10 regions. We, the Anglophones, we constitute 2 regions. If we are not recognized in our homeland by our own people, I bet you if we persuade outsiders with a good manifesto, they will embrace us. A good politician will strategize in such a way that he can do without the 2 regions. If he gets that, he's good to go. So, if you reject us, your brothers, I bet you others will embrace us. Thank you.
So you don't believe in negativity?
I don't.
Yes.
I see an Anglophone becoming a president of Cameroon.
You want them to move away from the ABC syndrome?
Exactly.
That is, you accuse, you blame.
If we all go out there, register massively, turn out and vote massively, we will send an Anglophone to the Unity Palace.
Fabrice Lena, you just listened to Tata Mbinglo. Do you buy his opinion? And you think that the more we get interested in political issues and actively registering and voting, defending the votes, we can send an Anglophone to A2D?
Of course, Mr. Leo, I cannot agree less with him. You know, our own political capital, Boya, is having a lot of young people who have committed their life to entertainment and other kind of activities and some kind of wanton activities that will not reflect aspiration of young people ready to govern a country in the future.
He was not given
if we are going to take those group of people in order to lead the country, it will be very difficult because the foundation of a country cannot be laid with people who just concentrate all their effort and energy on social life and entertainment. That is just a sector of the economy. I keep on saying this. Politics define every sector of the economy, including how you live your life and how your existence precedes. And if young people now, especially the English-speaking Cameroonians, are not yet conscious that they need to, as of now, get involved, engaged into civic and political life of this country in order that they, by their actions and activities, will choose a candidate and make sure that candidate stands and takes the presidency of this country, we are wasting our time. We will keep on recycling, complain and complain and complain and complain, and as decades are passing, times are passing, we will go to the Third Republic and the Fourth Republic, and the French will still continue leading us, and we will keep on being the underdogs in this country. The message is simple. All young people, all English-speaking Cameroonians need to understand that as never before, you need to get engaged. Choose a political organization, at least, even if not a political organization, a civic political organization, and get engaged. One of the most marveling aspects of all these things is that people don't know their political rights. Before you complain, you should even know the political rights. If you ask young people, the part of the Constitution giving them the right to carry out a public meeting or not carry, they will not know. The right for them to own voters' cards, they will not know. They reject everything and propose nothing. And this is where I have a problem with these young people. Politics is strategy. Politics is science. Politics is pragmatic. Politics is calculation. If you look at the narrative of Cameroon, we have a lot of possibilities, but we are undermining it. Every other geographical group of this country is preparing, except English-speaking Cameroonians. I have been to Marawa, I've been to North. I know what the young people there are doing as far as preparing to vote their own in the upcoming elections. I am in Yaoundé. I know what it is happening right now since Eleka opened their doors for future elections. And when we go to Boya and Limbe, we dance, go to the beach, and we think that we will keep on being subjugated. It is a shame that in the senatorial elections, CPDM is the only party in the Southwest region as of 2023. Irrespective of the situation we found ourselves, what you are supposed to do first before you complain. Because if we keep on complaining without taking part in the process will always happen without us being part of it, and we will keep on complaining and nothing will change. It's better, let all engage in our numbers continuously. We should even apply biblical values, perseverance. We have to be insistent, consistent, persistent, even if it is not giving the result. But we know, we are sure, we are hopeful that tomorrow is going to be better, hopeful that more credible young people are coming, hopeful that all these people on this panel are able someday, somehow, to represent and reflect aspiration of the people. Even if majority of leaders of today deceive some of the English-speaking people or the community some of the time, it will not happen all the time. There is an era that will come, and the leaders will surely deliver what the people want. Civic engagement, political participation, voters registration, PAP is open, and other parties is open for you to choose and then get engaged there. But do not stay behind and complain.
Kangaroo Man, we are listening to people who are also very pessimistic, but you guys are into politicking. How do you get your own brothers to encourage what you're doing? Because if they were to discourage you, you would not even have the motivation to move on in politics.
Well, you know, the first problem we have, which I must be honest with you, is that the voter apartheid spirit has been squashed. And why has it been squashed? because of the obvious reasons that the few who had equally been taking the bold step to get into the political arena have equally been fed up at a point in time because they see how the results move. Now, imagine, for example, this is senatorial we're talking about. We are in the Southwest region. Now, where is the euphoria? It's not there because a single party is standing. So it defeats that purpose. And even this, you discover that that's why I said that sometimes the parties that be, or the powers that be too, are not helping institutions because they take this for their advantage, yes. But in the subsequent elections, this will equally affect the other elections because after only their team now, meaning them stand. So at the end of it, that's why you see, even though Elena is talking, these are some of the factors that has made some of the youth to just think that they should just get into social activities because they don't want to be having headache of thinking on things that you put energies and at the end, the ballot box is decided at the Divisional Vote Counting Commission. You say you want to petition, you hear irrecevable at the level of the Supreme Court, whether it's the Constitutional Council in Yaoundé. So these issues have frustrated most of us, our brothers, who would have equally taken that interest. So I think that in real sense, what is the essence, for example, Mr. Liu? Even we talk to say we're following the law, they still would have equally done it in a way that they make it in such a way that the old councillors who are there are not the ones who vote senators. Okay, all councillors, the majority are from the ruling party. It's a carefully placed tactic. Now, the old councillors who are already even outgoing, they come and determine the senators who come in.
But that's the law.
That is the, I understand that you see the law. A bad law itself will not necessarily be hanging on that is the law because these are things that the law itself.
What would you have preferred? That fresh elections, municipal elections are held and then the newly elected municipal.
For the fact that, Mr. Leo, for the fact that these senators were voted by the old councillors, it simply means that under normal condition, it would have been carved in a way that new councillors come in first. Now they sit in and understand their area, their periphery. They now have a new impetus, new political blood in the system, who now go in and to determine the next breed of senators. If you have this, it would have been giving us a different breed. Now look at it that people who will be outgoing councillors by 2023 are the ones voting senators. That's incumbent senators. Whereas by the time that these senators will be living on, is another breed of councillors who will come to either confirm them or put in place new councillors. So you see the political structure was put in place, carefully manned by the kangaroo system and worked out in the kangaroo law to put in place systems that are not changing. So these are some of the things that discourage my brother. I'll tell you, if you ask the president here, he's not having it easy campaigning. I mean, within Anglophones themselves, because about I must leave me that thing, I must leave me that thing. So it is a daunting task for us to break that barrier when this present quagmire in the political scenario continues to take its way as far as the political scene in the country is concerned. It's a pity.
Okay, Barrister, but if we complain that, okay, we can't win elections and we complain of marginalization, how do we get to these positions of power? Do we expect to be appointed and even to be appointed by who? By a Francophone president? Because if we cannot become president, we would be living at the mercy of an appointment from Yaoundé. Why not go in for these positions, elective positions?
I think the first thing to do is to first of all resolve the crisis in those two regions.
Okay.
Apart from the ruling CPDM, no other political party can express himself. Even my brother here, who is aspiring to be the president of the republic, he cannot dare to go into the Norwest and talk to those people that want to be president. So I think we need to first of all to see how we put an end to this ongoing conflict. And I think when we have done that, and that we are all free to move into all those villages, those municipalities without having obstacles on our way, I think from there, that is the starting point. Because you will not be doing the politics here in Douala or trying to convince the Anglophones here. Go to the southwest, go to Kumba, go to
Bombele,
go to those places, yes, where at least that is where you will be able to speak to Cameroonians that yes, we have interest in having an Anglophone president, but with this present state, who can venture to go there if you don't have a series of armored cars guarding you? So I think that is the problem.
Not even a guarantee.
So that is why you see CPDM is flooding alone into all those two regions. So the first thing will be to resolve the crisis.
Yeah, but
if the crisis is not resolved, I don't see how you encourage people in those two regions to enter.
Yeah, but while pending the resolution of the crisis, the Anglophone politicians themselves, don't you think that they should be coming together? Because are you waiting until the conflict is resolved, then you go rushing to organize yourselves? should you not already be working on something so that should in case the problem is definitely put to an end next month or maybe the next 6 months, you guys are already ready to present a project to the people?
For sure, that's why I'm here, that's why I'm on ground. I think while crying, you should be moving, you should be walking. That's exactly what I'm doing. I do believe that the ruling government is using the Anglophone crisis to its own advantage. It's a mechanism. For example, if you look at how these conflict areas have been, you know, I can say political leaders have been handpicked from these conflict areas, and they are being maintained. Elections were postponed because of the conflict, and the same councillors who voted the old senators are to vote. They just have to renew their contract.
The old guards stay on.
Nothing will change. Now, they don't worry because all this is playing to their favor, to their advantage. So solving the Anglophone crisis might be a hindrance to them, because once the Anglophones rise as one people, it will become very difficult for them to withstand the opposition. So, but meanwhile, as I said, while crying, we should be moving. I think we should continue to mobilize ourselves. I've been doing a lot of work with Mr. Fabrice Lena from the PAP. I am CMC, but we work together in synergy to ensure that we mobilize youth to register massively, because that is our joker, their votes. That is what we need. And I'm certain that you can convince a guy in the bush to drop his gun and vote. He will do it. It's a matter of conviction. So we have a lot of work to do. We can't stay back and be crying that the government is not solving this problem, so we cannot move forward. While we should even be part of the solution. What are we also doing to carve out a solution to this problem if the government has failed to solve the problem? One of the reasons I intend coming to power is to put an end to this conflict.
Okay, we are out of time. We hope to continue this discussion subsequently. Fabrice Lena, thank you for accepting our invitation to be part of this edition of Prime Hour.
Yes, Mr. Liu, thank you for having me. But before then, I wanted to agree with Tata and to make a comment on what Barrister Tamfu said. What we should know, Cameroonians should know, is that the people in Yaoundé are not ready to solve the Anglophone problem for the Southern Cameroon War of Independence. They are not ready. They know that if they solve this problem, the young energy politicians that are coming up like us, they can never meet our level of energy and competition. They can never. That's why they prefer the situation to remain like that. But seeking other means, which is the political, but the political will solve the problem. So we have to seek the present means to solve the problem. Politics and party is very possible. So thank you very much. I want to appreciate everyone who wished me happy birthday today, and to say I'm grateful to be part of the program.
Happy birthday, Secretary General of the PAP party. We are expecting our cake. Send us cake from Yaoundé to Douala, so that after the program we'll continue with the celebrations. Okay, thank you for coming, Fah Elvis Tayong, all the way from Boya.
Yes, it's my pleasure. While we will continue to act as a nuisance to the neck of the kangaroo system until the right thing is done.
Okay. Barrister Tamfu, thank you too for coming.
Yes, the pleasure is all mine. I think we have been able to enlighten Cameroonians on the burning issues, and we hope that the days ahead will be fruitful.
Okay. Thank you too for coming, Mr. President of CMC.
It's been my pleasure. I must commend you, the journalists. I know what it takes to be a journalist in Cameroon, what you are facing. I want to encourage you. I want to keep doing the good work you're doing for the people, freedom of press, and be rest assured some of us are very, very watchful to ensure that your lives are safe. We shall become a watchdog in this case.
Okay, our cry actually goes to the community. If we are not safe in the community, we'll not be able to do our job. So we pray that you also help in our security. Thank you to the producers Eli and Desmond, and also to you, Romiat Ngancha, Martial, who is in Yaoundé, and to Tabi Tambe Bryant supervising the work we do out here. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.